Good day, I am Marv Usman Lamundo from Bachelor of Science in Secondary Education, major in Mathematics.
And I am Rafi Kabdu Abdullah from AB Islamic Studies.
Today, we are going to discuss about the sociological perspective, the self as a product of the society. Before the discussion starts, allow me to introduce the learning outcomes of this lesson. At the end of the lesson, you should be able to, number 1, recognize what sociology tells about understanding the self and others. By this lesson, you can able to know the contribution of sociology and to understand ourselves and also to reflect ourselves about the past thing that we did.
Number 2, discuss how individuals view of the self as a product of socialization. You can able to discuss and to make reflection of yourself about views or the perception of other people, about impact of socializations to understand yourself and to know the contribution of it to your daily life.
And number 3, explain George Herbert Mead's theory of the social life. As a reporter of this lesson, we are expecting that after watching this video lesson, you can able to discuss and also to explain the theory of the George Herbert Mead about social life, and we are expecting that you can reflect and relate your past experiences about this lesson or about this theory.
Number 4, discuss the self as a product of modern and postmodern societies. The learners should know how to discuss and differentiate the modern and postmodern society.
Number 5, appreciate your own solid experiences that have been particularly helpful in understanding the self. That is a list of the learning outcome of this lesson that reporter were going to expect to the viewers of this video presentation.
Before we start, allow us the ASUN to give overview about this topic that related to understanding ourselves. Have you know who really you are? Have you experienced to socialize with others group of people? Have your society helps you to nurture yourself and to enhance your skills for you to survive this world?
According to Jiddu Krishnamurti, understanding of the self only arises in the relationship in watching yourself in the relationship to people, ideas, things, to earth and trees, and the world around you within you. Relationship is a mirror in which the self revealed. Without self-knowledge, there's no basis for right thought and action. Yes, definitely, I agree to Jiddu idea about understanding the self. It's because for you to understand yourself, you should owe to experience, to have relationship and also interaction to the people around you and also to the things. It's because having relationship on that, you can able to recognize yourself and you can reflect yourself. He also claims that relationship is the mirror in which the self is revealed. For example, in your daily life, your action and your attitude will reflect you who really you are. The action sometimes we can control, but the real attitude and behavior that you have, you can hide it in your whole life. There's a time that all hidden behavior will appear without your prior notice. And now, let's proceed about the real definition of society and what is the contribution on it. Society is a group of people involved in persistent social interaction or large social group sharing the same spatial or social territory. Typically, subject to the political authority and dominant culture, expectation societies are characterized by patterns of relationship, social relation between individuals who share distinctive culture and institutions. A given society may describe as a sum total of such relationship among its constituent of members. In the social sciences, a larger society often exhibits stratific action or dominance pattern in subgroups. The society has biggest contribution to the have interaction with them. The example of the common society is the family. The family, we have father, mother, siblings, and also we have extension family. We have grandmother, grandfather, uncle, and auntie. This example of common society will help you to understand yourself by interaction with them. Another things that we can help about society is a barangay. Barangay, we have neighbors, friends. Sometimes our behavior will also adapt to them. And the barangays, as example of society, has a biggest contribution to know who really you are.
Sociological perspective of the self based on the assumption that human behavior is influenced by group life. Before we start to explain sociological perspective of the self,
let me to explain the perception versus perspective. Perception is what you interpret. It is your understanding of given situation, person or object. It is the meaning you assign to any given stimulus. While perspective is your point of view. It is the lens you see the world through and determine how you view yourself and others and everything else around you. For Anna, her perspective was that of a woman in the armed forces who wanted to make a difference. Her perception was that not achieving immediate result mean you are failure and good enough and not good enough. This perception then led to massive emotion, pain when certain benchmarks weren't achieved.
a particular view of oneself is formed through interaction with other people, groups, or social institutions.
In fact, in our daily life, we have own behavior, but if you are going to socialize on other people, there's a tendency that you can adapt or you are going to influence by other. Socialization, according to this, is really essential in terms of changes in behavior that influence of other group of people, specifically the friends, family, relatives, and also classmates, and the last, the teacher.
For example, in school, you are loner student, then you try to socialize to others group of your classmates that have a talkative and gossips behavior. If you continue to socialize with them, there is a possibility that you will adopt that kind of behavior.
Another example is that in your family, everyone has their own behavior, but if you are always to be with your father or your mother instead, there's a possibility that the behavior of your parent will be going to adapt and not behavior at all. Sometimes we can adapt the skills just because you are always to socialize with them. Then you always notice their skills and there's a possibility that you want to adapt that kind of skills.
Last example is that in your residence there's a lot of youth that tends to use illegal drugs and also to play the addictive mobile games, that Mobile Legend. Then you are attempted to socialize with him because of the words for enjoyment, purpose your only. Then you did their illegal doings and experience to play Mobile Legend. The day after, you like to be part of them and you always like to have some fun with them, meaning you are now totally adopt their behavior and also their illegal practice.
This chapter draws on the principle and concept of well-known sociologists to foster student understanding of sociology and how sociology impacts student everyday lives, and provide a pathway to understand the self-understanding of who you are and what you are in contemporary society. Meaning, in sociological perspectives, there's a principle that might help the individual to understand themselves and who you are and what you are. The people may help to understand selves by this principle that serve as a guide to reflect their existence in this world and also their selves about who you are and what you are. Meaning, the individual should know who really they are and should know their roles and purpose of this world and their existence in this world. In fact, in sociological perspective, the people or the individual in this society should influence their behavior by socialization. Meaning, socialization in this society is really important because has the biggest contribution to change our behavior as a student or as the individual. And in terms of socialization, we ought to have a critical thinking to have analyze or observance things to our people that want to socialize. Meaning, if have a tendency that once of the group of people is not good enough or has a biggest contribution or has a biggest disadvantage to yourself, the best thing you can do is let yourself away from that kinds of people. And that is the perspectives of the sociological perspective of the self. Meaning, in sociological perspective, the behavior of the individual is influenced by others group of people.
According to the sociologists like Med and Colley, the self does not depend on biological predispositions. Rather, it is a product of social interaction. That sense of self emerges as the individual partakes in the society. While the individual seeks for solid and stable self-identity in modern society, the postmodern individual tries to avoid fixation and keeps the option open for self-improvement.
Exactly, because the self doesn't in our heredity or genes to develop some behavior and skills that we have in fact it depends on our social life, not in the biological predisposition. Meaning, to think the possibility of having or changing behavior and to develop of the self should depends always in social interaction, not in the biological predisposition. But some individuals struggles on thinking where and how they adopt that kind of behavior. And it is normal to think, but if you encounter this kind of struggle, the best thing that you can do is to observe on your family and also observe to the society where you always interact. After observing, you ought to reflect the experience of yourself, then you will find the root on it.
In modern society, the individual is always tense or seeking to find solid and stable self-identity. Meaning, the individual in modern society is already care about their self and about their self-identity. For example, to reflect myself at the age of 18, I am come up to the point that I was asking to myself, who am I? And what is my purpose and rules in this world? I am thankful that to someone who sent me an advice that you don't need to think that things doesn't important in your age. You should focus the things that really important to you. At the age I found out for me to find who am I, need to interact other group of people and also to have care about myself and about my future.
Another thing is that in the modern society, we are now dealing about fashion and we are care about the words of other. Meaning, the individual in this kind of society is struggling to have better look and better appearance to the society. For example, in party celebration, the boy and girl won't attend to that event if their identity doesn't fit to attend. In fact, the boy and girl should buy a good shirt or dress for them to have a good appearance on others and to have a good identity. Then, the postmodern society, the stable institution in the ancient times such as family, the church, and etc. don't have much influence how you perceive yourself now just because the individuals in this society are branded on who they are because of globalization and media and also the technology Sometimes, the individual do themselves to construct their own culture. Sometimes, we adopt K-pop song, Thai song, Korean song, or etc. Then, in terms of reading habit of the individuals, that turns into a European books that individuals would like to know more about culture and history of Hitler just because of globalization. They have two types of postmodern view of the self. Number one, no, they have four types of modern view of the self. Number one, multiphania, authentic self, multidimensional self with conformity with the society. And number two, routine. Self is capable of changing constantly. The individual always jump up to one relationship to another just because it's just temporary, meaning there's no forever. Number 3, the centered self. The self is not fixed and has no enduring meaning. And this type of person, they don't care about the words of others and also about others. Meaning, the individual believes that it is me, it is my rules, it is myself, and it's my life. Number 4, the last but not the least, self in relation. Person self is not lived by himself but in relationship to people and cultural context. Meaning, the individual in this are very congeniality. They are always to adapt and adapt in terms of changes.
French sociologist Jean Baudrillard, the individual is always looking up for the beautiful things or the things doesn't important to him. The self, according to don't have care about how much money they spend and what will be the result of their decision. The most important, according to French sociologists, is to feel the pleasure or the one of the individual in this society. In fact, people in this society want to have prestige things even doesn't important to their daily life.
According to Gian, meaning in this society, most of the people in this society are dealing to have a prestige things or the prestige things or the trends things. Meaning they don't care about if the things that are if that things is important or not. The best for the most important to them is to feel their pleasure as an individual, to have the trends, to be on top on the trends, to be on top on the trends topic in social media. At that kind of behavior, it's just not good. It's not good for having that because there's a tendency that to have a crisis in our society. And now let's proceed for what is sociology. Sociology is the study of social life, social change, and social causes and consequences of human behavior. In that definition, it defines that sociology is about the study of the social life of the individual to understand themselves and also to study about how people interact to another group and how the behavior will going to adapt or change.
According to the definition on this lesson, sociology as scientific study of social groups and human relationships generate new insight into the interconnectedness between the self and other people. Sociology helps the individual to study and understand the culture and remove the prejudice and biases about society. Various thinkers and theorists try to interlink the societal concepts and study the interaction culture. They have provided a global perspective, bringing different culture and societies closer. Sociology has become an emerging subject which is in today's world is an important role to play by diffusing knowledge about society. Socialized thinking will emerge and socialized behavior will develop. The socialized planning will be further and new social order will be evolved.
What is sociology? Sociologists investigate the structure of group, organization, and societies, and how people interact within this context. Hence, sociologists offer theories to explain how the self emerges as a product of social experience. The Looking Up, The Looking Glass Self, The Looking Glass Self by Charles Wharton Cooley. When it comes to understanding ourselves, social interaction plays more important role than many of us realize. According to sociologist Charles Horton Cooley, individuals develop their concept of self by observing how they are perceived by others, a concept Cooley coined as the looking glass self. This process, particularly when applied to the digital age, raises questions about the nature of identity, socialization, and the changes landscape of self. The looking glass self describes the process wherein the individuals base their senses of self on how they believe others view them, using social interaction as a type of mirror. People using judgment they receive from others to measure their own worth, values, behavior. According to self, symbol, and society, Cooley theory is notable because it suggests that self-concept is built not in solitude, but rather within social setting. In this way, society and individuals are not separate, but rather two complementary aspects of the same phenomenon.
According to Society in Focus, the process of discovering the looking glass self occurs in three steps. An individual in a social situation imagines how they appear to others. That individual imagines others' judgment of the appearance. The individuals develop feelings about and response to this perceived judgments.
For example, someone meets a group of new work colleagues for the first time. The individual believes that she can easily demonstrate professionalism and competence to others. During this interaction with her new co-workers, the individuals pay attention to her colleagues' body language and words, choices, and reaction to the conversation. If these co-workers provide positive feedback, such as maintaining eye contact or offering a firm handshake, the individuals believe in her own professionalism will be upheld. However, if the colleagues provide negative feedback such as looking away or leaving the conversation quickly, the individuals might question how professional they truly are.
The process of the looking glass self is further complicated by the context of its interaction and the nature of the people involved. Not all feedback carries the same weight. For instance, people may take the responses from those whom they trust more seriously than those of strangers. Signals may be misinterpreted. People also usually take their own values systems into consideration when taking through any changes to their behavior or views of self.
Ultimately, the process on the looking glass self is one of alignment. People constantly seek to create consistency between their internal and external worlds, and therefore continue to perceive and adjust and strive for equilibrium throughout their lives. And the theory of the social self by George Herbert Mead are helpful in understanding how person views himself or herself, and she or she interact with the social environment that includes family, school, peer group, and mass media. Mead's theory of social behaviorism. Sociologist George Herbert Mead believed that people develop self-image through interaction with others. He argued that self, which is the part of the personality consisting of self-awareness and self-image, is a product of a social experience. He outlined 4 ideas about how the self develops. The self develops solely through social experience. Mead rejected Freud's notion that personality is determined partly by biological drive. social experience consists of the exchange of symbol. Mid emphasize the particular human use of language and other symbols to convey meaning. Knowing others' intention requires imagining the situation from their perspective. Mid believe that social experience depends on our seeing ourselves as others do, or as he coined it, taking the role of the others. Understanding the role of the others results in self-awareness. Mid positate that there is an active I self and the objective me self. The I self is an active initiate action that the me self continues interrupt or changes action depending on how others respond. Mid believe that key to self-development is understanding the role of others. He also outlines steps in the process of development from birth to adulthood.
Sociologist Charles Horton Colley in 1902 introduced the looking glass self to highlight that the people whom a person interacts with become a mirror in which he or she views himself or herself.
Self-identity or self-image is achieved through a threefold event which begin by conceiving an idea of how a person presents himself or herself to others. How or she analyzes how others perceive him and how she creates an image of himself or herself. Since these perceptions are subjective, a person might have wrong interpretation of how other people evaluate him or her. It would be critical if he or she thinks that others judge him or unfavorably because he could develop a negative self-image. The best thing that we need to do is to avoid the word overthinking, just because in this theory of self, there's a possibility to easily make a conflict just because of a wrong thinking or wrong judgment to other people. In fact, the individual in this theory ought to be perfect for you to avoid judgment and to reflect who you are. Moreover, the individual in this theory is really depends on the views of others. Judgment of others, its significance to them, the thought of others people about their self-image and identity. If have negative judgment, the individuals will be going to change their lifestyle or their behavior.
Another sociologist, George Herbert Mead, supports the view that a person develops a sense of self through social interaction and not the biological precondition of the interaction.
The sociologist in favor about the claims that a person develops a sense of self through social interaction and not the biological precondition of that interaction. I really believe on it. Based on my experience, some of my behavior and skill was influenced of the others group of people just because I really want to socialize with other people because I am a socialite person and I am thankful to have it just because it has the biggest contribution to me to fully understand myself and to develop myself.
Mead's theory of the social self explained that the self has two divisions, the I and me.
The I is a subjective element and the active side of the self. It represents the spontaneous and unique traits of the individual, meaning the I is the behavior of you without interaction with other people. Meaning there's no people influence you, then you have that behavior by yours. The me, on the other hand, is the objective elements of the self that represent the internalized attitude and the demands of other people in individuals' awareness of those demands. To elaborate it, the me behavior is the behavior made or influenced by other people. You have that behavior by socializing with other group of people. Interacting with our society has the biggest contribution. But as we grow old, we must think wisely on adapting behavior. If the behavior doesn't good to you, you must throw it on trash. It's because there's a chance that not good behavior will ruin your life. Meaning, in socialization, we need to have open-minded, skill critical thinking to avoid adopting bad behavior and to avoid socializing on bad group of people.
The full development of the self is attained when the I and the me are united.
Exactly. Having these two will help the individuals to develop their self and to have good way of existence in this world. According to Mead, the self is not present at birth. It's developed only with social experience in which language, gesture, and object are used to communicate meaningfully. Since there's a meaning in human actions, a person infers people, intention, or direction of action which may lead him or her to understand the world from others' point of view. A process that mid-level as a role-taking, then he or she create his or her own role and anticipate how others will respond. When he or she performs his or her own particular role, he or she becomes self-aware. The self continues to change along with his or her social experience. In other words, no matter how much the word shape a person, he or she will always remain creative being and be able to react to the world around him or her. Kendall 2013, Masinius 2015. That is the theory of the George Mead. He believes that in self we have I and me. The I is the behavior that we have without the socialization, without interacting with other people. In short, this I is made by yours. If you are talented, if you are socialite people, then that behavior is by yours. Then in terms of me, the me is the behavior that influenced by other people. Like what I'm doing today. Today I am influenced with my co-group, which is we are going to make a report. Therefore, then he influenced me to make video on that for us to pass these courses. Meaning for someone who has influenced you, then to have that behavior, meaning that that behavior is from the theory of George Mead, which that me is the behavior from the influence of other people, the influence of other groups of people.
Sociologist George Herbert Mead was interested in the way in which we develop self-awareness. Mead believed that our sense of self was primarily developed through our social activities. Mead has an interesting theory called the stage of self and made one of those sociologists around the early 90s. And really what they said was the self is defined by three distinct stages: that preparatory stage, the play stage, and the game stage. And these are the chronological stage. In other words, you would go to the preparatory stage first, then play stage, then game stage.
For me, the preparatory stage occurs in childhood and it's periods time where you imitate the people around you, especially other family members with whom you have a lot of contact. For example, if they see their if they see their dad working on the car, they may pick up the hammer and bang it on a piece of a wood. Or if they see their mom in the kitchen preparing for dinner, then they may also want to their little bowl and their mixer. This is also a period of time where the children start to understand through the use of symbols. Now remember, the language is a symbol. It is a symbol of our thought. So in this stage, children will begin by looking at picture and a picture book, and they will start to understand the symbol. So the preparatory stage will be early in childhood. Now let's move on to the next stage of the self, which is the play stage.
Play stage, this is the stage where children start to develop skills in communicating through symbol, and this will rule-taking actual start to occur. Rule-taking is the process of assuming somebody else's identity, if you will, and then responding from the imagined viewpoint. This is where you'll see children doing role-playing game, where you have children playing cops and robbers, or the good guys and bad guys, or they'll play hospital with doctors and nurses. So in this stage you could almost think of the child of being actor. They've taken on role, they've taken on the identity of the role, and then they're going go mimic that back through the socialization process. This is very important aspect of socialization as far med is concerned, because through this process, for example, the children gradually learn how to best navigate the social environment in which they live and interact every day. So in other hand, if you have a little boy and little girl in a family and they're imitating mommy and daddy, and mommy comes home from work and she's not in a good mood, and the little girl sees this and she's able to imitate it, helps her and helps her brother to understand that they may need give mommy a little bit of space so they get in a better mood, and so then later on in the evening the family can enjoy themselves.
The last part of the stage of myth about stages of life is that game stage is about 8 to 9 years old. Here where children ever go to start considering several actual tasks and relationships. Simultaneously, they start to understand that they are a player in the bigger picture, appropriately named the game stage. We can think about this in terms of sport. If you are a member, for example, one of a team member of the football player, basketball player, volleyball player, you have the role to play within the team, to play within the team to it, in order to ensure the team's success for these stages meets. Assert that children start to understand the universe doesn't revolve around them and that they are part of the bigger picture. Moreover, at this stage, children become concerned about take into account in their behavior. The generalize others, which refers to the attitude, viewpoints, demands, and expectations of the society, which include cultural norms and values that serve as references in evaluating oneself. This time, they can have a more sophisticated look of people and ability to respond to numerous members of the social environment. During this stage, the self is now present. In this stage, in preparatory stage, the child in this stage are always imitating the member of the family, or are always making an action that the member of the family were going to imitate. Then the second part is the play stage. In the play stage, the child in this stage may experience to play or being a doctor, being a little nurse, or being a little army. In this stage, the child might construct their imagination as taking that role, for instance. And then the last stage is the game stage. The game stage is it's about the 8 to 9 years old, meaning if you are a member of the basketball player, and in the game stage, you ought to play on that, and you ought to be to do your best then for you to win that event or that games. That is the theory of self, and that is the three theory of the self. Now let's move on to the continuation of the chapter. The self as a product of modern and postmodern society.
What is modern and postmodern society? Modern is a term used to define that the time that began in Europe several hundred years back. It is related to logical as well as rational thinking and has several key features associated with it.
Number 1, the production of goods and services and the economy are industrial and capitalist. Also, social class is the main form of social division. Number 2, the administration and central government is powerful and is known as the bureaucratic state. Number 3, the people think in a scientific and rational way and their knowledge is derived from that. Only the thinking is not based on religion, faith, superstition, or magic. Number 4, the views for the betterment of society were based on the trust the people have in science and technological progress. Several great sociologists try to find ways in order to understand modernity and the great transformation it created. Durkheim Marx attempted to create concepts and theories which could explain the work of their societies or answer very fundamental questions like what makes societies change and what is the power that holds society.
What is postmodern? Postmodern refers to the time after the Second World War, which was mainly around 1968. The approach that the people were using was based on objective manner. It refers to the new ways to think about the thought. The people in this time believed that knowledge itself requires to be had or understood in a different way. Postmodern society refers to several advanced post-industrial societies that were there after the 1950s. It has various key features like
Number 1, this time, duration involved the process of globalization. The nations start to come together and work towards betterment of one another. Number 2, this era result in the evolution of the concept of media came into the picture. Number 3, society now becoming consumer related, which means every individual has a freedom to choose their own lifestyle. Number 4, this was a time for cultural diversity, hybridity. People started involving themselves in making relationships with different societies, and they start thinking in more subjective manner than a logical manner. Jerry Lanuza 2004 article The Constitution of Self discussed relationship between society and the individual. According to him, in modern society, the attainment and the stability of self-identity are freely chosen. It is no longer restricted by custom and tradition. While this newfound freedom offers infinite possibilities for self-cultivation, problems such as alienation and the dehumanization of the self also appear, which hinder the full development of human potential. Hence, there is a need to discover the authentic care of the self for the individual to freely work towards self-realization. Whereas, the solution of the tradition, values, and communities in modern society has led the individual to construct a solid and stable self-identity. The postmodern individual welcomes all possibilities for self-improvement in postmodern society. Self-identity continuously changes due to the demand of multitude of social contexts, new information technologies, and globalization. Yes, it is true that in modern society, attainment and stability of self-identity are freely chosen. It is no longer restricted by custom and tradition, while this newfound freedom offers infinite possibilities for self-cultivation. Problems such as alienation, dehumanization of the self appear, which hinder the full development of human potential.
Then, in postmodern society, the individual tends to have changes and self-improvements. The self in this society is depend on having a changes to their life and to adapt new culture, and this is influence of the media and technology. Many people nowadays tends to support foreign artists just because they're really fun on it. In postmodern society, the individual has a freedom to do what they want to do.
Villanusa, he differentiates the the modern societies and post-modern society, and he believes that in modern society, the individuals in these societies is really on self-identity, self-stable. Meaning, in modern society, we are now dealing to have this self-identity and and also this self-stable. While the post-modern society is explained that people in this world have their own freedom to choose, freedom for what they want to do and freedom for what they want to have. Meaning, if you are fond of or if you are fan of the K-pop band, there's no problem on that. There's no judgment on that because in this post-modern society, we're now free for choosing who want to choose or choosing or who want to love. Meaning, by supporting other foreign artists, in this society, there's no problem on that. The best thing that we can do is go to the flow and choose who you want to choose. Additional explanation and to elaborate about modern society and the post-modern society. In modern society, people in that society are dealing for the stable life, self-identity. In a stable life, meaning the individuals have a concern to find a stable life, to find their rules as an individual, and the stable identity, meaning the individuals on that are really care on the words of the others, really care, they want to be good, or sometimes some people are dealing to have a self-identity. The most important to the individuals in this society are to be good enough, or to have an ideas about how life is all about, or what is the essence of life, and what is the essence of taking role of this beautiful existence in this world. While and also in modern society, we're not dealing about the prestigious things, because we're dealing about how to live a better place, how to find your identity. Meaning, we are going to develop ourselves by finding ourselves, by socialization, by interaction with other people. While in post-modern society, is also known as prestigious things. In the postmodern society, people or the individuals in this society are dealing for the tense, for the prestigious, for the good looking faces, for the hot topic issues. Meaning, in this society, people nowadays was influenced by globalization, by media, and also by technology. We're no longer defense for the influence of the other people, because we're now defending for the influence of globalization, the influence of foreign actors, the influence of technology, the influence of mass media. In fact, if have something trends in our society, in the post-modern people, or in the post-modern individuals, they were going to on top on that. They will not be good enough if that trends things they can't have. If for example, in a paint shop shirt, if have something or new arrival, the postmodern people were always dealing to have that kinds of shirt, because they want to be trends. They want to be on top on that trends. And another things on that is on our reading habit. Before, we're now dealing for reading for something for academic purpose only. And now in a post-modern society, we're now tends to have an new culture in terms of reading the in terms of reading. We're now seeking to have to be updated for the other country. For instance, we're going to buy something, books that were not related in ourselves. But the most important for that for our is to be updated for something for that event. But in post-modern society, we're not fully aware that we are now going ourselves are not going down because we're now dealing ourselves to feel our pleasure. We're do, in fact, sometimes we don't care. We don't consider ourselves that sometimes we can we can have an illnesses. Sometimes we can have virus since nowadays we have an COVID-19. Therefore, in a postmodern society, we're not dealing on that because we're not dealing about the safety of the people because we're now dealing on the pleasure. For having the prestigious things, to buy prestigious things, to buy a good cell phone. Then the most common example and the most common instances or the experiences is on that in the smartphone. In the smartphone, many youth or many people in this generation or in this society are having a competition to buy a new cell phone. Even they have also, but they don't care about that because for them, I really want to buy a new cell phone because in the like for example the iPhone 12 Pro Max, because the iPhone 12 Pro Max has the new has their new setting or new has a high resolution in terms of camera, but they don't consider their self. They don't consider their life status if she can afford for that because they are dealing about to feel their pleasure.
French sociologist Jean Baudrillard exposed the negative consequence of postmodernity to individuals in the society. Demetrio 2013.
Because the postmodern society, the postmodern individuals achieve self-identity through prestige symbol that they consume. Individuals seek for a position in society to the quality of prestige symbol that they can afford to consume. The cultural practices of advertising as mass media greatly influence individuals to consume goods not for their primary value and utility, but for the feeling of goodness and power when compared with others.
Hence, the postmodern person has become an insatiable consumer and may never be satisfied in his or her life.
For example, if a person buys an expensive cellular phone not merely as a useful communication device but because of its prestige symbol, he or she will desire to buy a new cell phone when he or she learns that a new and more prestigious model has came out in the market, or when he or she discover that other people are using more expensive mobile phone. Therefore, the self may be in a never-ending search of prestige in the postmodern society.
Jean explained the negative consequence of postmodern society and I am agree on it.
Just because in postmodern society, people tend to be top on trends and to be top on the trends on the social media topics. Sometimes they forgot their basic needs because of that trend and topics in the society. Some people may lead in a bad behavior because of the negative consequences of it. If the person doesn't good enough to think about that really helpful and to think the thing that might ruin their personal life.
Moreover, instead of focusing on the friends or the prestigious thing, why you don't use it to your academic aspect and it will be result in good someday. I am not telling that want people to enjoy their life, but we can enjoy our lives with limitation and guides that needs to follow for you to have better existence in this beautiful world.
In Gian Baudrillard, tama man.
Hmm.
Gian?
Okay.
In Gian Baudrillard, I am in favor for his consequences because I really believe that postmodern society or the postmodern people on that society are really tends to have a prestigious thing, without knowing that for having that prestigious things that can lead them to have a bad behavior, can lead with to have bad behavior on them. But in terms of the consequences, we can't deny the fact that they in the postmodernity has a biggest consequences of failure to have it at all. Sometimes, for example, in our daily life, if you can't afford to buy that prestigious thing, sometimes it can did a bad behavior or a bad action. Sometimes we're going to snatch upon because they want it. Meaning, for them to feel their pleasure, they don't care about the feelings of others. The most important to them is to feel their pleasure. But that kind of people in this postmodern society is not really good at all. In fact, as an individual, as a student, we must think first before doing anything else. We must think first before buying prestigious things. We must think the reason why we're going to buy it. First, for having a good impact on it, we can buy a prestigious thing if you don't have it, or if you have it at all, just sacrifice for sometimes. And also, then if you have too much or much money, then go buy for what you want. But don't forget that having a prestigious things may lead us, if we can't control our feelings, sometimes it will lead us to become a bad person, or the bad existence in this world. Additionally, if our parents failure to give that kinds of prestigious thing, maybe some people were going to become a more stubborn because they don't have their pleasure. They don't buy the things that they want to buy. But the best thing that we can do is to consider the reason why we want it and what is the purpose on that things in our daily life. Therefore, as an individual, we must think first before doing action, before buying the prestigious symbol or the prestigious thing. In the postmodern society, we need to become critical, to have critical thinking, to have analyzing and to reflect that things before buying that prestigious thing. For instance, as a former educator someday, I myself that I really want to have a printer, but in terms of money, I don't have a lot of money. I have some money, but the money for that is for my daily lives. Therefore, I decided to for set aside for buying a printer. Instead, I use the money, some money for having a daily cost in terms of my transportation in our school. Just because today's generation, we don't need we can live without that. We can live without prestigious thing. Don't believe for others thought that you're not good enough if without prestigious thing. That kind of belief, perception, perspective or perception in life has can make you ruin your life, can make you to become a bad behave a bad person, or to become a can influence you to become a bad behavior. Just imagine if you are always dealing for some for the words of others, you can't now consider you can't consider yourself as your reflection yourself. You can reflect yourself that am I right nowadays? It's right to buy it even I don't have money, even I don't have rice in house, we don't have water in house, then I insist to buy that kinds of prestigious things.